Okay, so we're going to look at a story problem here that uses an ellipse. Okay, suppose the electrical track is centered at the origin. So this right here, where it says it's centered at the origin, already tells me right here that where to put your x and your y axis. Okay, and it has a horizontal major axis length of 150 and a minor axis length of 40. So if I want to draw in my axis first, because remember that's always your first step because we're trying to write the equation of the ellipse. Okay, I want to draw in my y-axis here, and I want to draw in my x-axis. Okay, that way the origin ends up being at the center of my ellipse. So right there is my origin, so I can even already write that the center of my ellipse has coordinate 0, 0. Okay, and then it goes on and tells me the length of the horizontal axis, and it actually tells me it's the major axis. So the horizontal major axis has length 150 yards, and the minor axis has length of 40 yards. Okay, so the minor axis is actually vertical, and you can see that here. Okay, now the width of the football field is 30, but they got to go a little bit on each side of it, right? You don't want the track to run right along the edge. Okay, so my major axis is 150, and my minor axis, okay, has a length of 40. Okay, so now you should be able to tell me what A and B are. Okay, so remember, A is half the length of the major axis. So for me, my A is going to be half of the 150, which is 75. And then same thing, B is half the length of the minor axis, so B is going to be half of the 40. Okay, now which form of the equation do I need? Right here, it tells me it's the horizontal major axis. So my longer axis is horizontal, so that means when I write the equation, I need to write the x part first. So it's x minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. Okay, in this case I have the center, so I can fill it in for h and k, but I also have a and b because I already figured it out. So right now I can actually just write my equation. So since h and k are both 0, I can just write x squared over a squared, and we said a was 75, so I'm just going to write it as 75 squared, plus y squared, because it's going to be y minus k, so y squared over b squared, so that's going to be over 20 squared, is equal to 1. Okay, so I have part A done. I wrote my equation for my ellipse. My origin is the center. Okay, now it says find the width of the track at the end of the field. Okay, so let's look at that. So here's my end of my field, and I want to find the width of the track. So actually, what I'm looking for is this distance right here. You notice I drew a vertical distance, so when I write my sentence, it's going to be find a y, because it's a vertical distance I'm trying to find. Okay, so now I want to make a point on the ellipse that represents the point that I'm trying to find. Well, hopefully you realize if I find this distance, I'm trying to find the distance between this point and this point. But since an ellipse is symmetric, I know the distance from here to the x-axis is the same as the distance from there to the x-axis. Okay, so what I need to know is what's the distance from here to here, because remember we're trying to find when x equals, so I can find the distance from here to here, well that's half of the 120, that's the entire length, so when x equals 60. Right, so I'm going to go across here 60, and I'm going to find this y coordinate here. And it should be positive. Hopefully you realize if you do get a negative answer, it's this one and this one will have the same absolute value. Okay, so even if I get a negative answer, I can just use the positive of it. Okay, so that means I'm just going to go over to my solver now. Okay, so into the math menu. All right, the very last item in your list is the solver. Okay, and the first step I need to do is actually type in my equation. Okay, so if you end up with this screen, just press the up arrow button so you can clear out the equation that you already have. And then we're going to type x squared plus 75 squared. I'm sorry, divided by. Sorry, let me change that. So x squared divided by 75 squared plus y squared divided by 20 squared. And then the minus 1, because remember I have to have everything on the left-hand side because over here we have 0 equals. Okay. And now, using what I wrote here, we're trying to find the y when x is 60. I'm just going to fill 60 in for x, sit on the y. Okay, you actually should have a fairly reasonable answer, maybe of what y might be. Okay, so if you actually want to try to do a guess, we see that this whole distance is 30, right? So it looks like it might be something close to around a 15-ish, or we hope, or else the field doesn't fit in there. So if you want to even guess somewhere around 15, okay, I just typed in my 15, did alpha solve. You may not have actually seen where I typed in the 15, okay, and I actually have 1.2 as my answer, okay. Okay, so if you notice that 1.2 doesn't really make sense because that means I'm only going up 1.2 yards, which is not very far. So I probably should find my mistake. This is why you should always check and make sure does your answer make sense. Okay, so I'm going to go back up, and if you notice in my equation I missed the 0 there on the 20. So I'm just going to edit it, make it 20. Okay. And now I should be good to go. And let's try this again. So now we're going to find y when x is 60. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to put x equal to 60 in. Okay. I'm going to guess of guess of about 15 because we think that's about what the answer should be. Okay. And then I'm going to do alpha solve. Okay, make sure you're sitting on the y when you do that. And now I get an answer of y equals 12, and that seems much more reasonable. Okay, so what do I get here? I get y equals 12. Okay, so the question actually asks the width of the track at the end of the field, right? So we know if we come over to here and then I go up, I'm going to go up a distance of 12, but also this side would be 12. So the distance that I actually want is that 12 times 2, which is 24 yards. Okay. So will the track completely enclose the football field? Well, my whole football field here is 30 yards. So if the distance from here to that point is 24, that means this picture is not really drawn to scale because if I come over 60 yards, I'm only going to be going up 24 yards, which won't get me all the way on the other side. So the answer is no, the track will not completely enclose the football field. The track is actually going to run through the end zone of your football field.